Assalamu alaikum. Thank you everyone for attending. Shehzad sahab, we're ready when you are.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My dear participants, Assalamu alaikum. We are about to begin our Islam study circle session, and as is our tradition, we shall first start off with a particular. Sorry, there is some problem with the. So we'll start off with something which relates to our everyday attitude, and we will try to talk about certain attitude building things which relate to all of us, and which of course have a very important impact whenever we use. Sorry about that. Just give me a moment. Actually, something has restarted here. Just want to check. Just wanted to make sure if you can hear me. Hello? Hello? Just wanted to make sure if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry for this interruption. There was some problem with the setup here. So we're now going to begin. As usual, as I said, that we will start off with a value which all of us appreciate and which all of us would like to develop in our own selves. It is something that all of us would cherish, because as has been always the case, that all of us human beings need to always reevaluate, revisit, and reconsider our attitudes, especially when they relate to others. So the point or the topic which I have chosen in the first session relates to a very important human value. It relates to a very important human trait. In fact, it makes us part of this big community that we are living in, and I call this the art of appreciating others. So all of us, when we live in a society, we live among people who have all sorts of habits. They have good habits, they have bad habits, they have habits which we like. There are other habits which they have, which they might not like. So, all in all, a human being is an amalgam of good and bad traits, good and bad attributes, good and bad habits. So, the basic issue that we need to understand here is that no one is without flaws, and everyone has some good aspects, some good points, some points that we must appreciate in his or her personality. So the first issue here is that we must tune our antennas, we must tune our minds to the good qualities, to the appreciative qualities of other people around us. Of course, we know what bad habits they might be having, we might know what bad things they might be doing. But the most important thing in this regard is that we have to realize, we have to understand that every person, including us, is an amalgam, is a mixture of good and bad qualities. So therefore, instead of picking faults, instead of picking bad habits that people might have, let us first of all tune ourselves that wherever we are in a group of people, whenever we are living in an atmosphere in which we are with people who are around us, we have to find out the good points of people who are living around us, our spouse, our children, our parents, our friends, our colleagues. So you name it. There's so many people who live around us. The first thing that we have to find regarding people who live around us is to appreciate the strong points, the better points, the good points of each and every personality. And keep that in mind because there are few personalities who are very close to each other. As I said, like a very close relatives, like our fathers or mothers or sisters and brothers and daughters and sons, aunts and uncles, friends and colleagues. We know that there are very select people who with whom we spend our daily lives every day. Of course, there are other people, but then they come later on. And when they come later on, we can of course assess their character as well. But as far as our near relatives are concerned, at this stage of our lives, we all of us know the strong points, the good points of a personality. So let us become appreciative of those good points. Let our antennas get tuned to those good points. We should pick up a person if he is a sympathetic person. We should pick up a person if he is a selfless person, if he is an honest person, if he is a truthful person, and forget if he has some bad traits. He could be a person who gets angry easily, or he disobeys his parents, or he uses bad language. These traits simultaneously coexist. So he or she might be having these bad traits, but let us forget them for some moments and concentrate on his or her abilities. So that is the first point. That's the first step in the art of appreciating others. The second step that I'd like to stress here is that we all must realize that just as other people have good points and bad points and faults, and good qualities, the same is with us. And if we start facing criticism from our peers, from our friends, from our colleagues, from those who live around us regarding our faults, for example, if our atmosphere, if our environment, if the people around us, they concentrate on our bad habits and keep stating them, keep mentioning them, keep embarrassing us by actually publicizing our bad points, it will be a huge pressure on us. It would be something which at times it's difficult for us to even bear. So we have to realize this second aspect as well, that when we are appreciating others, if we do not do so and start criticizing them and always look upon their faults, then look upon our own selves. If we are in their own place, if we take their place and start receiving criticism from all around us and no appreciation, no encouragement for the good points we have, what will happen to us? It's obvious. We'll become disappointed. We'll become frustrated. We'll become depressive. We'll think as if we have nothing good in our own selves. So, the second point in the art of appreciating others is that if we do not appreciate others and start criticizing them every time that we meet them, or even behind their backs, imagine if the same thing happens to us, how badly affected we are. So we have to realize that when we criticize other people, when we don't encourage them, when we do not appreciate them, and instead we censure them, we rebuke them, we criticize them, we are sarcastic about them, we make fun of them, how badly it affects us. Because if we are in their shoes, we can easily see how bad would it affect us. So the second point in the art of appreciating others is that if we imagine ourselves criticizing other people all the time and not appreciating them, then it has a very, very negative effect on the personalities of people. And it does not at all produce harmony. It does not produce good relations with each other. And all of us actually become subdued. We become subdued personalities because we are weak individuals. We need other people's love and affection. Now, the third step in this art of appreciating others is that we have to find out that this these good points, whenever they are found in other people, we have to express them in words. We have to. It's not just a question of acknowledging in our minds, or just discussing amongst other people. Oh, look at this person; he is there and he has so many good qualities. No, we have to encourage other people, and this is done by actually expressing this encouragement in words. We have to appreciate people in words. We have to tell them of their good traits because it really is a big boost in their own personality development. When we hear people around us encouraging us, appreciating us, also praising us, not for something what we don't have, but of course for our own good qualities, we really feel encouraged. And as human beings, all of us are weak. We need this support, and this support is something which goes actually it goes for all of us. So let us be expressive. We have to express our appreciation around regarding people who are around us. It's not just a question of acknowledging them in our minds or perhaps in front of others. We need to tell that person whom we appreciate that you have this good quality. We have to tell our spouse, we have to tell our parent, we have to tell our brother or sister or daughter or son or friend and colleague whatever good point that he has, because it's a big boost that you give when you appreciate others. And the fourth and last point in this regard, which is also very important, my dear viewers, is that when we appreciate others, let this be unbiased. When I say unbiased, it means if you find a good quality, even among people who might be your adversaries, who might be your opponents, who might be against you, who might not be your very good friends. In fact, they have acted very rashly and very badly in the past, and there might be people who are jealous of you. There might be people who are at a distance from you. But when it comes to appreciating others, let's not be stingy. If people who are against us, if people who are opposite to us, if there are people who are jealous of us, and if there are people who act as our opponents and adversaries, if we find some good quality in them and we have the chance to express that good quality, let's be very magnanimous. Let's express that person's kind attributes that he has. And if at all there is a chance that we are able to express those good feelings that we have, or at least the good qualities that we appreciate in our adversary, let it be before him, in his or her presence. This will really be a confidence booster. It will really be a means to bring both of us together. And also, if we don't get a chance to speak good of him in front of him because of some reason, then if we get a chance of speaking about him to regarding other people or with other people, let's again express our encouragement, our appreciation for others. So these are the four essential points which I would call form the core and the crux of the art of appreciation. So, as I said, the first thing is that we have to tune ourselves to the good attributes of others. The second thing is that we have to realize that continuous criticism regarding others is something which really discourages them, demoralizes them. And if we are in their place, we should realize that how upsetting this experience is. The third point that I made here is that we need to understand that we must express in words our appreciation of others. It's not just something which should be in our minds. We have to use our tongue. We have to express it in words that before that person, so that he feels encouraged. He or she feels that we are actually his or her well-wishers. And the fourth point, my dear participants, that I had made is that we must encourage people who are around us, and in this we have to do it without any bias. It should be an across the board phenomena, which means that even if there are people around us who do not like us or who are against us, if we have a chance of speaking about them and we know that he or she has a good quality or a good attribute, let this come out of our mouths and let us be very, very generous in this praise, because it might be difficult for us to praise our enemies, to praise those who are against us. But I can tell you that if we are able to overcome this barrier, we will be, inshallah, becoming closer to that person. We might make that person who is acting as our foe, who is acting as our enemy, turn into our friend. And the Quran has actually alluded to this behavior by saying, "Idfa' billati hiya ahsan," that if you find someone against you, if you find someone retaliating against you, you find someone who is speaking ill about you or who is evil in his thoughts about you, idfa billati hiya ahsan, you return his evil with what is good. If you do that, Quran says, فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ. If you are able to return the evil with good, you would realize that you become very, very close friends. It's the Arabic word hamim means bosom friends, friends which are very close to each other. So the Quran says that if you are able to requite evil by good, if you reply to every evil by your own goodness, you will realize that that person is actually doing something, a favor, and he or she is something who is coming closer to you. And hence, we need to realize that this is an area that we need to work hard on, because the Quran has actually told us that this is the way in which we can become friends to each other. We can become close to each other. So let us be generous in praise, not only towards our friends, but also towards our foes. So this is the point that I wanted to make in this first session, that we have to appreciate others. Appreciating others is also the expression of truth, because, as I said, when we appreciate the good attributes or the good qualities of a person, we are acknowledging what the truth is. We are acknowledging what he or she actually has. Hence, acknowledging the truth, expressing the truth is also a very important requirement. I know it's difficult to praise people. It's very difficult because, you see, our own ego at times is the biggest barrier against it. Our own ego stops us from praising others. Our own ego stops us from appreciating others. But it is here that we need to overcome our ego. We have to be magnanimous. Magnanimity is not just through your own pockets, it's not just by spending on others. A greater means of magnanimity is through our own tongue, it's through our own words. We have to be expressive, we have to appreciate others, and that is the only way in which we can expect our own selves to be appreciative by others. Others will only appreciate us if we are able to reciprocate or appreciate others. So, with these few words of value and attitude building, I will end this first session, and also pray that all of us here have. I'm sure all of us might be already in this gear in which we are appreciating others, but let us make another fresh commitment when we start off from here, that we will make a concerted effort, a renewed effort, an extra effort to acknowledge others, and we will do that with words. And you know what? At times we take things for granted. At times, people who live right near us, they need this encouragement, because they know that this is the only way in which human beings interact in a positive way. So this is a positive attitude that we need to adopt. And I do hope and wish and pray that all of us from today onwards will make this renewed commitment with one another, that they'll start encouraging, praising, and appreciating all those people who are around us, especially people who are our adversaries and are people who are junior to us, because it takes a lot to express the good qualities of our adversaries and to express the good qualities of people who are younger to us, who are perhaps junior to us. And this is a big challenge that we have to face, and let us rise and stand up to this challenge. So, in case you have any questions, we can proceed with them.
If you have any questions, please either type it or click on the hand icon. Faranaz Saiba wanted to know why is her mic muted. We open the mics up for questions after the different segments are done. So after the first 20 minutes, we open it for questions. And then we leave the mics unmuted for the continuity of the session, so there is no interruption. If you have a question right now, I'll open your mic and you can go ahead and ask. Thank you. Faranaz Saiba, can you hear me?
Yes, now I hear you.
Okay. Did you have a question?
No, I was waiting for the audio.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Shahid Asharfi Saab, please go ahead and ask your question.
It's not a question, actually. I just wanted to, for our benefit, a couple of examples from the life of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam about this. Thank you.
Okay. So there are several examples in our Prophet's lives in which he actually encouraged the Sahaba to appreciate other people, to appreciate their good qualities. And I'll quote an incident which occurred in his life, in which you will perhaps understand that how he not only appreciated the good points of the people around him, he also downplayed the bad habits of others. So the incident that I'm going to quote you or cite before you actually relates to the second part, because when we downplay the bad habits of other people, when we do not discuss those bad habits or try to hide them, this also, in a tacit way, actually is something which is very, very beneficial, and it encourages the other person that if he has a fault and he has not been exposed regarding that fault, then as a result, he or she has the chance to still mend her or his ways and recover. So this is the incident. This is an incident I'm going to relate to you. It occurred between two wives of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it happened when he was staying with one of them. We know that he took turns in staying with his wives, and he would change almost every day or every second day. He go to the next wife. So he was staying. I'm not going to name the wives, but I'm just going to make the incident narrated before you, so that you are able to concentrate more on the content than on the names. Of course, names can be given later as well. So the Prophet was staying with one of his wives when he received a sweet. It was a very special sweet which Arabs used to make with rice and with the shakar and with some other ingredients, which would be a very, very pleasing thing for our taste buds. And the Prophet really loved that. So it was like something of a souffle that we eat. So the Prophet was staying with his wife, and here comes a person with that sweet in a bowl, and this was actually from another wife, where he was perhaps staying the previous night. So when that person or when that servant or that attendant came with that bowl of sweet to the Prophet's house in which he was staying with his other wife, this wife got very annoyed and very, very angry. She said that the Prophet had been to her wife last night or the previous day, and here again she is sending a bowl of sweet. So what business has she to interfere with this in this one day that the Prophet is supposed to be with her? And she became so angry. This is a very authentic incident related in Bukhari and other books of history, that she became so angry with that bowl of sweet that she took that bowl from that attendant and threw it down and broke it into pieces. Now, the Prophet was looking at this, and he was actually watching what was going on. And he became very perturbed that when this attendant will go back and report this incident to the first wife, she'll get very upset that what has happened to the sweet that she had sent for the Prophet. So you know what he did? The Prophet took another bowl made of mud, which was very similar to the one which that wife had sent. It was an empty bowl, and he gave that bowl to that attendant, to that servant, and said, "Okay, just give it back to your mistress, or to your own to the first wife." And in this way, he demonstrated that instead of aggravating the situation by telling the first wife or getting into the notice of the first wife the fact that the bowl had been broken, he gave that wholesome bowl to the servant so that he could take that bowl to her, to the first wife, and tell her that the sweet has already been taken. So what I am trying to say here is there are a number of things that which the life of the Prophet and his companions can be seen actually acting upon, in which they would not only appreciate the good qualities of others, they would downplay the faults, they would downplay the shortcomings of their peers as well, so that this could give them a chance to mend their ways. Of course, when we hide the faults of others, when we are able to give them this protection, that person is provided with an opportunity to mend his or her ways. And this is a huge thing that we can do. And I gave this example purposefully because this actually tells us how appreciative the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was regarding his environment, in which he wanted to promote congeniality and friendship amongst wives. And also, this incident shows that the wives of the Prophet were human beings. They were they were like any other human being. Of course, they had a lot of good traits as well. They had a lot of good habits and good qualities. But when it comes to this small altercation, some of them even had this, and of course, they later on mended their ways and they become even better individuals. But to give us this inkling that even great personalities as the wives of the Prophet, they were human beings, and at times they too showed something which they might not be very proud of. And again, the Prophet, he was the great teacher, he was the great educationist. He would encourage the good qualities of people and downplay and hide the bad habits of his people who would surround him, so that they could be given a chance to develop and improve themselves.
Thank you, Shehzad Sahab. We have no more questions, so we can continue on. We cannot hear you. Uh, Still not. It shows that your mic is muted from your end.
Okay, is
It's
it
fine now. It's
okay
fine.
now?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So, as I said, that the second part of our session relates to some common misconception, which generally goes the name of Islam, and we try to dispel some of these misconceptions. So today I have a couple of misconceptions in my mind that I'd like to clarify. And as I said, that these misconceptions primarily relate to women and the way some of these issues have been held up as sore and core issues. The first misconception, or in fact, it's more of a clarification, and it's more of something which I would like to create awareness about vis-a-vis certain things regarding marriage. So, as we all know, that marriage is something which all of us at some point or the other experience, and those who are yet to get married, of course, they are online for this very natural happening which occurs in the life of almost every human being. Now, one of the things in marriage that needs to be understood is that there is a token money, there is an amount of money which is given by the husband to his wife, and it is called mahar in Arabic and dower in English, in which we actually give the certain amount at the time of our marriage contract, which is called nikah. So often people are not aware of the significance of meher. They do not know why meher is given and what is the reason that it is given and why is it essential that it should be given in cash or in kind at the time of marriage. Most of us, when we get married, if you recall that there are marriage sections in our nikah contract, on our marriage contract. One of them is regarding meher, and it says that whether you want to pay it at the spot or whether it should be deferred. So most of us end up deferring the meher, and at times we are paying half the meher or the other half is deferred. But more likely is the case in most marriages that this meher is never actually paid, and it is said that it will be paid at a very later date. And often the issue, the time arises when, unfortunately, there is an issue of divorce between the two parties, between the husband and the wife, that the issue of meher crops up, and it is said that this amount has to be paid. And often a very huge amount is at times set, because we know that this is helpful in the way our marriages are revoked. And at that time, we know that since that money has to be paid later on, so it is used as a buffer. So if the amount is large, it will be used as a buffer, so that does not take place. But before I sort of explain more, I would like to communicate this fact that if we study the Quran uses the word ujur, which is the plural of ajr, which in fact in Arabic means it's a token sum. It's a token sum which is given to the wife. And why is it given to the wife at the time of marriage? It is given to the wife at the time of marriage to express this willingness from the husband that he has taken upon himself the responsibility of supporting the wife and later on the children from his own pocket. So, meher or dower has a very special significance. It is given as not something to be paid later on or deferred or at the time of divorce, which is an unfortunate happening that it should be given. It is something which it is to be given right at the time of marriage. It is absolutely an important thing, although of course it can be deferred. But if people come to know the understanding and they come to know the importance of meher, they they'll be immediately moved towards actually paying it right at the time of marriage, and that is that they express this willingness. A husband expresses his willingness when he pays mahar to his wife, that from today onwards, when you come into my wedlock, I will be responsible for all your expenses. I'll be responsible for your pocket money. I'll be responsible for the household expenses that you need. I'll be responsible for the expenses which will be required to run the house and to of course cater for the expenses of the children later on. So this is basically this expression. And we if you go deeper than this, then we have to realize that this significance has arisen because in the marriage setup which is proposed or envisaged by the Quran, it is the husband who has the responsibility to earn for the family. He has been bestowed with this response. He's been made accountable for this fact that if a wife, of course, wants to earn, there's nothing stopping her. But if she does not want to earn, she's not impelled. She's not bound to earn anything. However, a husband has been bound as the breadwinner of the family. He does not have any choice in this regard. He has to earn for the family. He has to be responsible for the financial affairs of the family, which is coming into being. And because he's made responsible for this, right at the time of marriage, he gives a small amount, whatever amount that he affords. Quran says that the amount of meher should be according to the maruf, and the maruf means what the custom of the society is, whatever the conventions of the society are in regard to this. And it can even be reduced later on through mutual consultation and mutual agreement. But if the wife insists that it has to be according to her needs, she has the right to make that. And she can even at the time of marriage ask her husband. And of course, this is something which in our societies is unheard of. We actually tend to take things for granted, and a lot of differences of opinion regarding marriage and marriage problems arise later on because a lot of things are not settled at the very onset. it's something of a very important thing that, of course, our children and our new generation, they have this. We know that this has now become a custom in which they start dating each other, or they start meeting each other before marriage, and they start to discuss future problems or future affairs, and of course their own compatibility. But an important thing that is needs to be pointed out here is that at the time of marriage, whatever terms of contract that can be made between a wife, whatever demands a wife may be having, or whatever requirements she may be having, she has all the authority to express them at that time, so that at the very outset, he or she knows what to expect later on. And amongst these requirements is the fact that the meher can be, of course, discussed upon, and she can make a demand in this regard. She can even have this conversation with her would be to husband that this is the amount that the token as a token that should be given to her, and this is the amount that she'd expect as a running money for household expenses. So we need to understand that besides other contractual obligations that we may owe to each other, and we may need to decide at the time of marriage, one of the most important of these contractual things, these contractual elements, is the issue of meher. And the philosophy of meher, as I said, is that it is an expression on the part of the husband that he is now willing to take the financial responsibility of the family, which is about to come into existence, on his own shoulders. He is going to support them. And this is a token of that. This is a symbolic expression of the money that he's going to provide every month to his wife in order to run the affairs of the house, of course. And in this regard, as I said, whatever the conventions of society are, they can be taken into consideration. So just to recap, that mahar is something which is, of course, we call dower in our own language in English, and in the Arabic we call it meher. But it needs to be understood. It is in the fitness of things. It is of most appropriate nature and character that this meher should not be deferred at all. It should be given right at the time of marriage, because this actually expresses the resolve of the husband to take the financial responsibility of the wife. So when he pays that in cash at the time, or in kind at the time of marriage, right at the time of marriage when he's taking the bride home, it actually expresses his full willingness to keep to tell her that he is now responsible for her expenses. So if he knows, or if we start knowing this, and if we start disseminating this fact amongst our younger generation who are now going to get married, or other people who are in their marriage way, that meher is something which needs to be dispensed at the time of marriage, because it is something which expresses the will of the husband to take care of the expenses of the wife, and therefore it must be given at the time of at the time of marriage itself, at the time of nikah itself. So this is one of the misconceptions, I would say, or lack of awareness, perhaps is a more appropriate way. We all of us end up giving meher, but seldom do we know that why are we giving it. The second misconception, my dear viewers, that I'd like to point out today again relates to women, and the way they are generally brought up and treated in our society. And that is that it has been mentioned in certain narratives of the Prophet that women bring bad luck. And of course, when this is something which is mentioned on the authority of the Prophet, all of us really get perturbed and need to find out more that what exactly did the Prophet say. So there is a narrative in which it is said that bad luck or bad omen is something which is brought by a house, by an animal. In some narratives, the animal is signaled out as a horse, and by women. So this is actually stated in some narratives. And when Aisha radiallahu anha came to know that this is what people are talking about, she became really angry, and she actually scolded those people who were narrating this on the authority of the Prophet, and she said that the Prophet never said this. You need to correct yourself. What the Prophet actually said was that Arabs have this tradition, have this saying in them, in their own history, which has been handed out to them. It is their belief. It is what they say, that bad luck or bad omen is something which is brought about by a house, by a horse, and by a woman. So Aisha radiallahu anha actually corrected this and said that the Prophet never said these words, although some people have started to quote him on this. But what he said actually was that this is what the Arabs used to say. And this is what happens in some hadiths as well, that at times narrators, when they describe or when they state the purport of the Prophet, they sometimes accidentally drop a few words and give that narrative an absolutely new shape. So if you find this narrative in some of the books of hadith, like the Musnad of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, you'll find these words, and then you'll find a narrative which actually comes after that, and which is a correction on the part of Aisha radiallahu anha, in which she said that, listen here, the Prophet never said these words, you are mistaken. The Prophet was actually citing or quoting Arabs that they used to believe that that bad luck or bad omen is something which is brought about by a woman. So, unfortunately, there are narratives still existing in our hadith books in which this correction or this corrective narrative is not read in unison or together with this original narrative, and they are still used by some people to say or signal the fact that it is because of a woman that we are having this bad luck, especially in our villages, especially in areas which are not much developed in the third world countries. And this is very unfortunate. And we need to get out of this, and we need to understand that the Prophet never said these words. He was only citing the opinion of the Arab society. And Aisha radiallahu anha corrected this right at that time when this situation arose. And it is extremely unfortunate that people still cite part of the narrative without realizing that it had been corrected by the wife, beloved wife of the Prophet herself. So I would now end this session with by clarifying these two misconceptions: one regarding meher and the other regarding women allegedly bringing bad luck. And I'll now request you that if you have any questions regarding the topics that we have discussed today, you're most welcome to ask them.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. We have a question from Munazza Malik. She's saying, does meher need to be in form of cash, or can it be in some other form? For example, jewelry which has value and can be converted to cash. So meher is one-time gift of cash given at the time of nikah.
So the answer to this question is that meher can be in cash or in kind. It can be anything, but preferably, if possible, it should be in cash, so that it's something which the wife can actually expend right after the marriage, and in which we know that there is always this shyness between the couples when they use the money that is being handed over to them. So it is in the fittest of things if cash is given. But if that is not possible, and if this is mutually agreed upon between the husband and the wife that this will be the token that they are giving, and maybe it can be converted into cash later on, or not even converted but preserved, this is something which has to be done mutually. So if the wife accepts this, it's perfectly okay that some things can be given in kind. But if she insists that she would like to demand something which relates to cash maybe, or to something which is more usable, she has this right to do. She has the right to demand this. So the best thing is that before marriage, the husband and the wife, through their families, should settle this in advance with the spirit in mind that it has to be given right at the time of marriage. And if it's to be something like a piece of jewelry, then of course, if the wife is convinced of it, if she'd like this gift to be taken, it's perfectly okay. However, if the cash is something which she would like, and she would even state this or insist upon, then the husband should concede to this wish of hers.
Thank you. We have a question from Taj Khan Saab. Please go ahead and unmute your mic.
Dr. Saab, my question relates to not only the dower, but the statements that you have made, and has been made many times before, that the husband is the one supposed to provide for the wife and the children, and the household and all the expenses. Living in California, California is a what they call a community state, community property state, which means that during marriage, during the term of the husband and wife being together, whatever they earn, whatever they buy, it becomes community property. It is owned by both the husband and wife, and not only if the husband goes out and works and makes X amount of dollars, the wife has the right to all half of that money or all of that money. It's a joint ownership of the property and the income. So as a Muslim society, how to reconcile these things, and what are the, how can we follow the Islamic traditions as well as live in a society where there is this conflict.
So, my humble submission in this regard is that this law is not against Islam at all. It actually, in the given scenario that you described, is more of a law in which it gives protection to women so that when they unfortunately get divorced, they are not left high and dry, and they have something in their hands. So it is not something which is against Islam. If this law has been enacted in some country or in some state of the United States, as you have just pointed out, it goes for the benefit of the one of the spouses, and of course, it's something which might be taxing for the husband, but it cannot be regarded to be against what Islam stipulates. But at the same time, we need to realize that in this situation, the obligation of the husband would tend to get reduced when he is giving something or buying something, and the ultimate property or the asset that is being made is being distributed half between the husband and the wife. So that protection is already being given to the wife. But again, this obligation, although might get reduced because of this new scenario, but still, as far as providing for the family is concerned, it's still his obligation. He needs to provide everyday or maybe monthly expenses for his children or for the wife through his earnings, and that is something over and above the assets and property which he has bought, and which as a result of that law in that state, half of it belongs to his wife. So that is an over and above protection which is given. But other than that, this does not mean that he should not go on and support his or her children or his wife through a mutually agreed amount. The amount in these circumstances could reduce through a mutual agreement if the wife is also earning, and if she thinks that she has been given these assets as a result of the state law. It has to be a mutual thing. The wife can give this remission, this concession, but if she insists that she wants to be supported, then this is something which the husband has to do. And if he thinks that this is something of a more taxing nature, or it's actually proving very heavy for his own earnings, then the choice is his. After all, he knows he's in a state where this law is, and he has made the choice in staying of staying in that state. He can move to some other state or to some other country, but as long as he is still there and he would like to stay there out of his own choice, he has to follow the rule, and at the same time, he must still provide for the family that he is supporting and running.
I have a follow-up, along the same lines. It's not just the husband whose income is shared or owned by the wife, but the wife's income as well is equally is the property of the husband. So it goes both ways. So
Hmm.
each partner in the marriage, whatever they make and whatever they own, it's a joint property of both the spouses. So
Hmm.
if the wife makes the money or the husband makes the money, it works both ways. And when the money comes in, of course, that is used for the household expenses, the children, and whatever else they want to do with it. So it is spent in the family but how do you reconcile that the wife's property also becomes the husband's property?
Well, as I said, this is an additional protection which has been given by that particular state, because in the first place, the wife was never liable to earn or give the support to the husband. If she's giving something and half of it belongs to her husband, she's actually giving something which belonged to her. The husband was in the first place liable to give it to the wife. The wife was not liable to give anything to the husband. So if she's giving half of what she's earning, she's already forsaking something, and hence that cannot be made a pretext that therefore this amount should be reduced or the law should be changed. So what I'm trying to say here is that the husband has this responsibility of supporting the wife, come what may. And if the money was half and agreeable between the two, perfectly okay. And if the wife is earning, in the first place, if she had been earning, all the money that she was supposed to earn should have gone into her pocket. Now, because of the state rule, half of the money is going into the husband's pocket. So all the more reason in this case that there should be no change at all. Because, as I said, the responsibility in Islam goes or rests on the husband, and he is already giving half of it to the wife, and the wife actually in the first place was not required to give even a penny to the husband. It was perfectly okay for her if she kept all of it in her own pocket. But because of state law, as you mentioned, she's giving half of it to his spouse, and therefore, in this regard, this does not, in my humble opinion, change the situation, and the husband is still liable in this regard to pay. And of course, there can be an equilibrium situation which can be reached between the husband and wife, given the scenario in which these properties and these incomes are shared. But if the wife insists that she would like to maintain that money with her own self, she has all the right to. It is only the state law in this regard which is perhaps interfering and not letting her keep all the money. Otherwise, Islamically, it would have been perfectly okay if she was earning all the amount and all the amount was being pocketed by her own self.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. Khalid Haq Saab, I think the question you typed has been addressed in Taj Khan's follow-up question, so I'll leave it unless you feel otherwise. Yassine Fahad, if you could unmute your mic, you can ask your question. Thank you.
First of all, I just wanted to mention that we did not get the evaluation sheet for truthfulness, the one that you mentioned last week, that we will get it by email. We did not receive it. The other thing I wanted to...
Just 1 second, Dr. Saab, if I can clarify on that with your permission. I did receive it from Dr. Shehzad after I sent the recording in, and I plan to, inshallah, send that today's class recording. Thank you.
Okay, and my question is not about the dower, but about the dowry, the Jahez culture that we have in our society. I know that it should not be there, it's not right, but I want to know if there was anything existing at the time of Prophet ﷺ, where, something was given to the girls when they were married. Like, was there any such thing existing at that time? Like,
Well, in the times of the Prophet, it was totally the opposite. All the expenses of the wedding would be borne by the husband, by the groom himself. And we know this very famous incident in which Ali Ta'ala anhu, when he was getting married to Fatima, he actually sold some of his camels, or he wanted to sell some of his camels in order to earn some gain out of it and spend for the wedding. So in the time of the Prophet, it was absolutely the opposite. And if ever the fathers or the mother of the girl or the bride wanted to gift anything to her, it was totally a private affair. It was not made into a public announcement, and it was not made a requirement of wedding the way it is in our societies, especially the third world countries. And as you have rightly said, that dowry or jahez is something which is rampant in our third world countries a lot, especially the Muslim third world countries, and it's a big social evil. And it is because of this dowry issue that many of our young girls, they go past their marriageable age and they are not able to get married. But again, as you see, that in order to curb a social evil which is very rampant in the whole society, one or two or three or four people, if they make this effort and try to stop it, it may have an impact in the family that they are living in. But unless we as a nation collectively rise and come forward and make this collective effort in abolishing this social evil, these scattered struggles and efforts, they might be of some significance, at least in some areas, but the whole strata of the society needs to be changed regarding Jahez and dowry, and they must be told that this is a huge uh, evil that we are actually nurturing in our societies, and we are carrying this forward as a tradition since time, since olden times, especially in India and Pakistan and countries which are close to us. And this is a big hindrance in the marriages of our children. And we also need to tell people that the way in which this was naturally carried out in the times of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was that the husband himself was responsible for all the expenses, every expense. He never demanded anything from the bride's family to provide anything. He was solely responsible. He would be the person who would throw the banquets, and he would be the person who would be liable for all the household expenses, the wedding expenses, the pre-wedding expenses, the post-wedding expenses, unless, of course, those small gifts are concerned, which the parents of a bride themselves naturally give to their child. So, as you rightly pointed out, this is a big social evil and something has to be done. There's no doubt about it that it's something which has really plagued our societies. But for it to become a very impactful reformation, it has to be done by a large number of people so that we are able to make some impact in the society that we live in.
Um, Thank you, Dr. Saab. We have about 2 to 3 minutes remaining. We'll take the last question from Khalid Haksab. Please go ahead.
No, just going back to the previous question, I think, Dr. Saab, you didn't understand. In California, if the wife is working and the husband is not working and they divorce, the wife still has to pay husband and maintain his status of living. And it is alimony for life as long as the husband is not doesn't marry again or doesn't start working. And that is against the Islamic principle that the man should hold the responsibility.
So my question is that even if it is against what Islam says in spirit, you're actually ending up giving more to the wife or making her more richer. The question is that you cannot violate the law of the land.
Excuse me, not at all. It's the wife who is giving it to the man. She has to bear all his expenses. So she actually loses out. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't have to pay her anything.
Okay, so what do you suggest? Because if you're living in an area which has a particular law, you have just two options. You either obey the law or you move from that place, because you just cannot end up hoodwinking the law. You can make a case out of it by saying that this is something which is unjust, or it is something which, as you said, the life loses out on this particular scenario. But the counter question could be that when she is not being divorced, she is also benefiting from half the assets of his husband and also becoming the owner of a lot of property. So that go on in your own state. And as far as Muslims are concerned, if they are settled there, they must follow what the law of the land is, and keep on presenting their point of view that this is how we feel independence in our personal law. Let me make this point to you that one of the biggest achievements of Islam, when it reigned for so many hundreds of years, was that it allowed this freedom of personal laws to Jews and Christians. If you study history, you'll find out that the biggest asset or the biggest advantage which Islam gave to them was they were allowed to practice their own personal law, and the Muslim personal law was not imposed upon them. So I think a case should be made by you people living in California that you should ask your governments that at some point in time they should be allowed to give you freedom in personal laws so that matters could be decided the way we think are right. But until that happens, this is something that we have to go by because we have to be law-abiding citizens of a state.
Indeed,
I do understand what you're saying.
I do not dispute that. We have to be law-abiding. The question was that this is slightly contrary to the Islamic principles. That's about it. The law we have to follow. That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dr. Saab, if you can allow me to make a point, just what came to my mind is that, I mean, on the surface, the California law, this law is unlike, a traffic rule that you have to stop at the red. The law gives you a right, apparently, but it does not force you probably to that you have to take it. If you want to, I mean, in reconciling it with the Islamic law, if you don't want to accept it, the law will not force the husband to take that money from the wife.
The law forces you to do that. Unfortunately, in California, it does.
Oh, so you are so it's automatically taken from wife and given to the husband, even if the husband does not want it?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it is given, and then the husband can return it back if he wants it. But by law, it is given to the husband.
But the husband has a choice to return it if they want
Indeed,
it to.
indeed, he can return it. Okay. Indeed, he can return it. Indeed.
Thank you for the clarification, sir. Our time is up. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. Thank you everyone else for attending. Inshallah, I'll send the recording and I'll send that questionnaire along with the recording. Just one quick announcement. With the recording, I will also send a link to a page that we have created. On that page, you will find all the previous recordings at any given time that you wanted to come back to. So you don't have to ask us to send the recordings. Thank you very much. The previous recordings. Assalamu alaikum.